Way back in late 2010, when I was in my early teens, it was just me and mom. At the time, we used to live in an apartment complex in one of the big cities in India, where all the neighbors deemed it their business to know what was going on in everyone else's life. They'd spend all their time watching what people did, what they left, when they left, who they left with, and relay all this juicy information to the security guard. The security guard would then pass on this information to the shopkeepers who had their stores nearby. Basically, we didn't have any privacy. 2010 was sort of a new beginning for us. My mom was settling in a new job, which brought in financial security for us. We could now afford to buy a new car, which we did. We started buying new household stuff and doing things that we couldn't afford to do before. Then it began. The harassment started with prank calls. The first time he called, I was the one who picked up the phone. When I didn't understand his gibberish, I handed it over to mom. A few seconds later, my mom was screaming and threatening to call the police. I got pretty scared listening to her. When I asked her about it, she just told me it was a prank caller. He kept calling throughout the rest of the evening, and my mom just disconnected the phone in an attempt to silence it. These calls occurred sporadically over the next year, but that wasn't enough. He started keying our car. In the beginning, it was just light scratches, a few inches in length, but as time went by, the scratches turned more vicious. Towards the end, he had scratched both the sides of the car really badly, and each one would have taken him hours to do it. Soon enough, it was Ramzan, and my mom and I woke up in the early hours for the pre-dawn meal. She used to wake up earlier than I did to cook something for us. On one such day, she heard someone trying to jiggle the lock for a whole hour. She woke me up, and before she could do anything else, he stopped. He continued to do this several more times over the course of a year. My mom was fed up. She filed a police complaint, but they just said they couldn't do anything without proof. Neighbors hadn't seen anything, or at least that's what they claimed. He was escalating, and one day we found our car cover torn to shreds. The sapling my mom had planted a few weeks previously was torn up brutally. And then one day it all just stopped. We didn't exactly notice it because our security guard had died, and my mom was worried about the creeper getting bolder. And that's when the truth came out. Now, among the gossiping old ladies who lived in my complex, there was a really mean old lady. I knew she was mean because she had made me feel bad about not being rich as the other kids a few times before. She also was notorious for turning people against each other. As it turns out, this evil old lady had conspired with the security guard to harass us, and thus began their year-long reign of terror. In our worry, we didn't even realize that the harassment had stopped as soon as he died. All of this was revealed by another old lady, who the evil bat had confided in earlier. But they later had a squabble, which prompted her to spill the beans. Needless to say, we were disgusted by all of them. And the kicker? The security guard had aneurysm and a heart condition that became severe right before he started his harassment. He knew his days were numbered, yet instead of living in his last days doing something good, he decided to die with negative vibes. I hope he gets what he deserves in the afterlife. Hi, I'm 25 and female. This happened to me when I was 6 years old, and since then, several things have happened to me, which are part and parcel of living as a woman in any country, especially India. So, for some background, I lived in a tightly knit neighborhood where everyone knew everyone, and kids from all ages played together in the evenings. It was such a comfortable neighborhood that I could step into any home I was near and ask them to give me a snack or water because all these people were friends of my grandparents and parents. So one afternoon, around 12 of us were playing hide and seek, and I was hiding behind one of those wooden doors that guard alleys leading up to the main door of the house. This alley also opens up on the other side to the end of the street. So it's a fairly large property I'm talking about. So while I was hiding there, I heard footsteps on the other side and didn't think too much. Because after all, it was someone's home and it was normal for people to be walking up and down the alley. I was straining to hear whether my friend was out on the street or somewhere and would catch me in my hiding place. So obviously I didn't notice that someone had crept up to almost 10 feet away from me. I don't know why, but I suddenly heard some movement and turned around to see a man, tall, dark, and in shorts and a t-shirt. To my utter dismay, this guy was whispering to me, "Come here," and his short were lower slightly. At that age, I did not have any conception of what he was doing or what it meant, and the only thing I remember feeling was intensely uncomfortable and scared because I didn't know who this person was. He was inching closer to me and kept asking me to come to him in a soft voice. And I don't know how, but I sort of lunged for the wooden door and sprinted out on the street, where I started screaming for my aunt because I knew she was the only one home. Loads of people, including my friends, hiding in different spots, heard me, and by the time they all came, I was just shaking. I told them what happened, and they looked everywhere, all over the street and the hall. I told them what happened, and they'd look everywhere, all over the street and the alley and back road, but couldn't find the guy. For a long time after that, I was assigned a partner for every hide-and-seek game because I couldn't play alone anymore. This was in the late 90s, so police reports of things like this was not common, and nothing more was done about it. However, forward in the alley, let's please never meet.